All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this webinar on educator well-being, hosted by Renee Van Norman of WellEducator and supported by Northwest PBIS Network and Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. We would like to give a land acknowledgement. The University of Washington Smart Center and Northwest MHTTC, Northwest PBIS Network, and WellEducator acknowledge that we learn, live, and work on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people and the ancestral lands of the Kalapuya and Sayusla people who walked here before us and those who still walk here. We are grateful to respectfully live and work as guests on these lands with the Native people who call this home. Dr. Van Norman is a curious, compassionate visionary with a passion for teaching and educator well-being. Over the past 20 years, she has worked in a variety of roles in education, including higher education, early childhood education, and as an education specialist at the state level. In these roles, she witnessed firsthand the need to support the well-being of our education workforce. Her passion for educator well-being and her effective and engaging presentations inspire educators to define and follow their own well-being plan for the betterment of themselves, their students, and the institutions in which they serve. When she is not working, she enjoys hiking, camping, birding, and time with her partner Keith and her two dogs, Charlie and Zoe. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Van Norman.
Thank you, Sarah, so much.
Thank you.
And welcome to Building Educator Resilience through Self-Compassion and Gratitude Practices. And congratulations for making it to another Friday during a pandemic. And you're on your way to a winter break. We're going to learn some practices today to practice self-compassion and gratitude and build your resiliency. I'm going to shut off my video now so we can really focus on the practices that we're going to learn today. Sarah mentioned some reflective notes, and these reflective notes you can access in the chat box, and they're designed for you to follow along and actively participate in the PowerPoint slides and webinar. You can make notes, write questions, and expand your thinking on a topic. I want you to know that these notes correspond directly to the content presented in the slides. And these notes also include all of the resources that you're going to hear today in this webinar, including all of the links to all of the videos. Before we get started with the objectives, I think we should all take a collective deep breath. What do you say? One collective deep breath. In through the nose and out through the mouth. It's probably been a really long week, already a very long month. Before we dive into our objectives today, just settling into this moment. In a moment, we'll have time to set an intention. But before we dive into these objectives, just taking a moment to settle in to our time here together today. This is our roadmap. What we're going to learn, hopefully, you'll walk away with these objectives today. Learning the benefits and importance of a practice of self-compassion and gratitude. Learn how to create a practice of self-compassion and gratitude to support your well-being. And then learn and experience, if you're willing, 3 mindfulness and meditation exercises. As I mentioned, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so we're going to set our intention together today. For the next hour, I'd like you to just complete this sentence for yourself. For the next hour, I will extend loving kindness to myself by, so I can. So just in this moment, for this time, we're going to be learning about self-compassion. What better time to set this intention, to send yourself some warm wishes of loving kindness. So let's just take a moment to fill our cups. You may send yourself a warm wish of loving kindness, of health, happiness. May you be at ease so that you can be present here today. Just take a moment and complete this sentence for yourself. Setting an intention is an important point of a mindfulness practice, and this will help you be focused in your time here for the next hour. Let's start by talking about resiliency. Elena Aguilar, in her book, Onward, Cultivating Emotional Resilience in Educators, which I highly recommend because she brings you on a trip through 12 months of cultivating emotional resilience, specifically for educators, talks about resilience being a way to bounce back quickly from adversity, even stronger than before, so you can fulfill your purpose in life. She talks about weathering storms in lives and rebounding after something difficult. This enables you to thrive, not just survive. For our purposes today, this is a way to set a set of adaptive behaviors that we can change, strategies we can use, that we can change by practicing gratitude and self-compassion. And that's important for us to build our resiliency, especially during a pandemic. So how is today's webinar organized? First, we'll talk about what the practice is. Then we'll talk about the benefits. We'll talk about how to practice so we know the mechanics. And then we'll talk about ways to support our practice, how to build a habit. First, we're going to talk about gratitude. And I love this. Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. What better way to start than actually experiencing some gratitude? So if you're willing, we're going to do a guided meditation on gratitude. And this is gratitude for a teacher in your life. This is a recorded gratitude meditation. So if you're willing, firmly plant your feet on the floor. Sit up tall so that you can take deep breaths in and let them out. You can place your hands in your lap or by your side. And you're going to listen to the recording. Your mind might wander, but without judgment, gently bring it back to the sound of my voice. Just listen along with the recording. Let's get started.
Close your eyes if you are comfortable, or just gaze downward. Take a few deep breaths. Maybe in through your nose initially, and then out through your mouth. With each exhalation, allow your body to soften a bit more. As long as you're here with the breath right now, allow your body to settle into its natural rhythm of breathing. Breathe in and sense the breath coming in. Breathe out and sense the breath going out. Allow your body to take the breath it needs in its natural rhythm of being alive. Now, think of a teacher in your life who has inspired you to become the person you are today. Visualize this person in front of you right now. What emotions are you feeling? Where are you feeling them in your body? What thoughts are coming up for you? Without getting stuck on any one thought or emotion, just sit with how this person has inspired you. Now, with this person in mind, bring your attention to your heart and think of all the things you are grateful for that this person has brought into your life. How have they contributed to the person you have become? Sit with these feelings of gratitude. Breathe them in and breathe them out. With one more breath in, thank this person for all they have brought to you in your lifetime. And breathe out gratitude and appreciation. When you're ready, open your eyes.
You have just experienced a gratitude practice of guided meditation, a gratitude for a teacher in your life. Hold those feelings that you're feeling right now as we walk through the benefits of gratitude practices and the definition of gratitude practices. Robert Emmons, a leading scientific expert on gratitude, talks about the two components of gratitude. It's an affirmation of goodness, and that we recognize that the sources of this goodness are outside of ourselves. Just as you did in the gratitude practice that we just experienced, you affirm that goodness were the gifts and benefits we received from the teacher, and that we acknowledge that others gave us the many gifts to help us achieve the goodness in our lives, like the teacher that you brought up when you were thinking of the teacher in the gratitude practice you just experienced. Why do we practice gratitude? The research tells us that many people experience physical, psychological, and social benefits from practicing regular practices of gratitude, like gratitude journaling, for example. They have stronger immune systems. They report being less bothered by aches and pains, lower blood pressure, exercise more and take better care of their health, and they sleep longer and feel more refreshed upon waking. Some psychological benefits is that they report higher levels of positive emotions, alert and alive and awake, joy and pleasure, optimism and happiness. For social benefits, you can see here that they're more helpful and generous and compassionate, forgiving, outgoing, and feel less lonely and isolated. These are just some of the benefits for some people. Now, gratitude does not doubt or deny suffering. It's not delusional positivity. That won't help. Gratitude does have a recognition of suffering. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about ways in which you can practice gratitude. One of the many reasons people practice gratitude is that it feels good. There's some research that shows that brain chemicals associated with positivity give you an uplifting molecular boost. It does feel good to practice gratitude. And perhaps you had that warm feeling when you were bringing that teacher to mind during the guided meditation. And perhaps you didn't. It doesn't have that effect on everyone. You need to find a gratitude practice that works for you. And we'll talk about several, so maybe you can pick one that works for you. And some people say that gratitude changes the way we look at the world, that we may look at the world with a more positive lens when we practice gratitude on a regular basis. Now let's watch a video on ways that we can cultivate an attitude of gratitude and other benefits of practicing gratitude on a regular basis.
Research shows that adopting an attitude of gratitude, simply expressing appreciation and being more thankful, can measurably improve your overall well-being. For example, studies prove that gratitude can increase happiness, reduce depression, and strengthen resiliency. Grateful people often experience reduced blood pressure, less chronic pain, increased energy, even longer lives. People who purposefully express more gratitude report higher self-esteem than those who don't, and they're more likely to help others, a pro-social behavior also linked to greater happiness. People who capture grateful thoughts before bed sleep better than those who don't. Why so many positive changes? Because gratitude actually rewires our brains, kickstarting the production of dopamine and serotonin. Like antidepressants, these feel-good neurotransmitters activate the bliss center of the brain, creating feelings of happiness and contentment. This appears to be self-perpetuating. Research suggests that with regular practice, you'll train your prefrontal cortex to better appreciate and retain positive experiences and thoughts, and to deflect the negative ones. Here are a few simple ways to deliberately cultivate that attitude of gratitude. Celebrate minor accomplishments. Think about what you have rather than dwelling on what you don't. Tell the people in your life something you appreciate about them. Tell yourself too. Volunteer, hold a door for a stranger, or simply smile more, and you'll probably feel better, as kindness and giving are connected to gratitude. Similar positive brain changes can occur from regular meditation and mindfulness. Keep a daily gratitude journal using an old-fashioned notebook or a high-tech app. The science is clear. Give gratitude a go. You'll be thankful you did.
The video shared many ways in which we can practice gratitude. Let's go over a few. There was journaling. Journaling 3 things that you're grateful for. Just journaling or thinking about 3 things that you're grateful for can bring upon those physiological and psychological effects that had many benefits. How about 3 things that went well before you go to sleep to improve your sleep at night? Letters or texts. I practice 3 texts to my friends at the end of the day, and they text back 3 things that they're grateful for. Remember I said it's not the absence or denying of suffering? Remembering those difficult times of hardship and being grateful that you have moved on from those can be an excellent practice of gratitude. Practicing guided meditations like we did. The Insight Timer app is an excellent app that has a search function, and it's free for many of the guided meditations. You can actually put in gratitude and get many gratitude guided meditations. You can create a collage of pictures of things that you're grateful for in your life. Expressions on social media. Recently, I was scrolling on Facebook and my friend posted a stop scrolling, write down 3 things that you're grateful for in the comments below. And I did just that. And I did have that little boost of positivity. Complimenting someone is a great way to get that benefit of gratitude. Spreading kindness and appreciation, as the video mentioned, are all ways to get those benefits of gratitude that we talked about earlier. So these are just a few of the ways to practice gratitude on a personal level. Find one that fits for you. They don't all fit for everyone, but you can practice and try out what works for you and what works best for you and see what benefits they have. Maybe make it fun and try some technology. Here's a review from happierhuman.com, and there's an extended review in your reflective notes if you click on the link. The Gratitude app included free access to quotes and affirmations, prompts for gratitude journaling, and a way to upload photos. It also included daily reminders. It seems like an easy-to-use daily gratitude journal for free with other advanced features to unlock for the premium subscription. The Day One app is an award-winning gratitude and mindfulness app. It is a digital journal where you can store photos, videos, audio files, and other data. You can also add reminders and notifications for appointments. Not much was available for free, so you would need to get a subscription for all the bells and whistles. The 365 Gratitude app wants you to focus on what is good in your life. You can win rewards and prizes by unlocking medallions when you complete daily challenges. The app has daily prompts that can help you appreciate your family, friends, work, and relationships. It also has a community where you can inspire and support others through your words of wisdom. The app also has a mood tracking feature that can help you monitor your daily moods to understand yourself better. It also has a mindfulness coach named Joy that helps you achieve peace and clarity. Not so much was available for free on this app. The Reflectly app uses artificial intelligence to help you reflect upon your daily thoughts and activities. It also takes notes of your habits to provide you with suitable, meaningful journal prompts. The app focuses on helping you learn self-care to achieve ultimate happiness and life satisfaction. It is advertised to help you with stress and self-care by using a combination of positive psychology, mindfulness, and cognitive behavioral therapy to engage its users. Most of what it offers is through its premium subscription. So there was just a review of some of the apps that are used for gratitude journaling. So keep it fun. Here's a video, a TED Talk by Robert Emmons, the scientific expert on gratitude. He gives us some more ideas for how to practice gratitude.
How can I go beyond just feeling more grateful and actually being a more grateful person? Well, in the book I wrote, Thanks, there's a whole chapter devoted to practices, evidence-based practices. And we need these because it doesn't come easily or naturally. And so it is with me. I find that despite the fact I've been studying this for 11 years and know all about it, know about gratitude, don't always know gratitude in a more personal way. And I find I have to put these into practice, consciously think about ways to become grateful. In fact, my wife says, how is it that you're supposed to be this huge expert on gratitude? You're like the least grateful person I know. That's what she says. And that's why I don't bring her to these talks. You know, she'd say, who was that up there talking? I don't understand. I don't recognize him. But she has a point because, again, it's easy to lapse into the negativity mindset. It just seems to be so much easier and natural or whatever. Well, there's some specific guidelines. I don't have time to get into all of them, but not surprisingly, one of the first ones is keeping the gratitude journal. I think any practice that consciously, intentionally calls focus our attention on developing more grateful thinking, eliminating ungrateful thoughts, feelings of I deserve this, or feelings of perceptions of boredom, apathy, versus seeing things as new, as different, as exciting. Deciding to yourself, you know, I don't need to be grateful right now, but maybe I'll give it a try. It can't harm me, and maybe it'll help me. Right, even under difficult circumstances, making these decisions, developing reasons and evidence for becoming more grateful, not because you just think it'll make you happier, but in fact is a better way to experience life. And I do believe that people who live a life of pervasive thankfulness really do experience life differently than people who cheat themselves out of life by not feeling grateful. Practicing counting blessings, finding a time to do it on a regular basis, right? Maybe the morning, maybe the evening. You may not have to write it on paper. Some people find it's effective to translate their thoughts into language, put them down. Others just like to reflect on it mentally. What else do we have there? Using visual reminders or cues, particularly working with children. We find that children are not abstract thinkers like adults are, and they need concrete visual reminders, cues. Here's a picture of a lady down there. Can you see what the jars? She's in British Columbia, Vancouver, and her family has developed this practice of putting money in jars, and they label each jar abundance or blessings or gratitude. And when the jar is full, all their spare change, you come home at the end of the night, empty your pockets, goes in there, and then they give it to some needy person or a good cause within their community when it's full. And it teaches children, first of all, about the importance of gratitude, but then that gratitude also does something. It impels people to give forward in some measure to which they themselves have received, or gratitude bracelets, like you see up there, that people wear. Visual reminders, something that will help them overcome some of those obstacles to gratitude, like busyness and distractions, forgetfulness, and so on.
Dr. Emmons brings up a good point about giving back. So it's not just counting those things in which we're grateful for, but it also includes giving back to the community and giving back to others as part of gratitude, the active component of gratitude. So how can we practice gratitude at a school-wide level? One thing that we want to start off with is first identifying how individuals would like to receive appreciation and gratitude. Is it public or is it private? And you can understand this by maybe doing a survey and finding out how staff likes to receive appreciation. Each staff member may have a preference for how they like to receive appreciation and gratitude, whether that be publicly appreciated or privately. And then you can go forth and do your gratitude practices, like staff awards, if that is publicly appreciation, silly or formal awards. If you wanted to do more private, you can do identification of strengths, and individuals can identify each other's strengths and put them on a bulletin board. Gratitude statements before a staff meeting if it's more public appreciation. A gratitude vine or tree like you see here, where individuals write gratitude statements for each other and put them on a tree, or a vine. When I was a preschool director, I set a challenge for my preschool teachers. I put up a vine down the hallway, all the way down the hallway and coming up the other side of the hallway. And I challenged the educators to put up a leaf with their gratitude for each other. And I challenged them to make it all the way down the hallway and back up again by the end of the school year with a gratitude for each other throughout the school year. Offers to help, support, or give break, that's an opportunity to do private appreciation. So giving an offer to help someone and gratitude for each other. Notes of encouragement with a favorite treat or inexpensive goodie, maybe placing it in a mailbox, just being privately appreciated that way. So again, understanding individual preferences is important when doing appreciation at a school-wide level. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions in the Q&A. So there's some information in the Q&A right now. Maybe I will pause and see if anyone has any questions on gratitude. If you have any questions on gratitude, if you wanted to put that in the Q&A now would be a great time, or we can move on. There's lots of good gratitude practices that you can engage in to get those wonderful benefits that we talked about. And again, they are specific to you and what works for you. So let's talk a little bit about supporting new practices. It can be difficult to start a new habit, and there's ways that you can do that. You can be intentional about your practice. You can start a new practice by being intentional about when you're going to start, what your practice is, for example, journaling, when you're going to start that practice, where you're going to start that practice, and how you're going to start that practice. So knowing exactly what the practice that you're going to do and being intentional about it. Designing your environment, making it an easy practice to start with. So if you're starting a new journaling practice, starting that maybe 3 days a week rather than all 7 days a week, or starting it for a few minutes a day, or only 3 gratitudes at a time, starting it to make it easy on yourself. Designing your environment also means putting out the journal where you can see it so that you're more likely to do it. And making it fun. For example, if a journal isn't something that excites you and is fun for you, using an app. If journaling is fun for you, finding a fun journal, or using pens that are fun to use, or using stickers. Pretty thank you cards, or some type of thank you cards that are fun and exciting for you to use. Trying voice recordings if writing isn't something that is fun for you. So again, being intentional, making it easy, and making it fun is a way to start a new habit. I think I saw a question pop up, so I'm going to go ahead and see. Oh, that was just a comment, so that's great. These are great ideas, thank you. Yeah, they're fun ideas and ways to start a new gratitude practice. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit, and I'd like you to sit for a moment and imagine a good friend and colleague came to you and was having a difficult time. She mentioned that she had a terrible week. Her virtual session crashed in the middle of an important lesson. She got an email that the principal wanted a meeting with her next week. She was having a hard time balancing work and home life during the pandemic. She said she was a terrible teacher and was thinking of leaving her teaching position altogether. What would you say to that friend? Now, imagine that friend was you. What would you say? What would you be thinking? Is it the same or different? Oftentimes, it's a different message that we give to ourselves than we give to a good friend. And that's our segue into self-compassion. Dr. Neff, the leading researcher on self-compassion, defines self-compassion as treating ourselves as we would treat a dear friend who is having a hard time. Unfortunately, we often treat ourselves much differently than we would treat our dear friend. We do not treat ourselves with kindness, and we're going to talk about why that is. Elena Aguilar talks about if we want to have compassion for others, we must begin with self-compassion. Nurturing others begins by nurturing ourselves. So think about the profession that we're in. We're in a profession where we want to give compassion to our students and to the families that we work with. If our cup is empty, as we talked about earlier, we're less likely to be able to be in a position where we can have compassion, truly have compassion for the individuals that we work with, if we can't give the self-compassion to ourselves. Some additional definitions of self-compassion: refraining from judging ourselves harshly and berating ourselves, extending kindness to ourselves so that we can have the strength and energy to examine ourselves and make changes. Educators are often lifelong learners. We want to grow and change. We want to learn. So in order to do that, we need to extend kindness to ourselves. That loving kindness that we did earlier, we need to do that on a regular basis in order to grow. So what are the 3 elements of self-compassion? These come from a Buddhist tradition, and Dr. Neff clarified these for us. Self-kindness versus self-judgment. We need to treat ourselves as we would treat a good friend. We need to extend ourselves that loving kindness, just as we did in the statement at the opening of the webinar. We need to stop that self-judgment, and we need to not judge our judging. Common humanity versus isolation. We need to understand that there are imperfections and that we're not alone in our suffering. that suffering is part of the human experience and that we all make mistakes. Mindfulness versus over-identification, that we respond versus react, that we choose how we respond to negative thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. And we don't get stuck in that negative thought loop, that we're able to notice and identify when we're in that negative loop, and we're able to respond accordingly. We're noticing and we're aware. Let's hear from Dr. Neff herself about these components and about the definition of self-compassion.
What is self-compassion?
Well, I think it's usually easier for people to understand what self-compassion is if they think of what it feels like to have compassion for others, which is more familiar. So let's say you've got a good friend who you're very close to, and she tells you something that's gone wrong in her life, or maybe she's made some big mistake, blown it on a work assignment. So if you have compassion for your friend, the first thing is you're tuned into her suffering. I mean, maybe your friend doesn't even say she's upset, but you just notice the way she looks, and you say, oh, what's wrong? Tell me about it. So you've got to notice that she's suffering first, and then in response to that suffering, you have to be kind, caring, supportive, try to comfort your friend, soothe her, let her know that it's okay, let her know that you still care. And then finally, it's important to remember that suffering is part of the human experience. You might say to your friend, oh, it's only human, it happens to all of us, it's an experience that we all share, so your friend doesn't feel isolated in her suffering. So compassion really involves three basic components: noticing suffering, being kind and caring in response to that suffering, and remembering that imperfection is part of the human experience, something we all share.
And is this the same for self-compassion then?
Exactly the same. So with self-compassion, the most important step actually is to notice your own suffering. And a lot of people say, well, isn't that blindingly obvious? But in fact, it's not. Especially when your suffering comes from your own self-judgment and self-criticism. Some of our worst pain is when, we look in the mirror and you notice you've gained 10 pounds. Well, that is a real moment of suffering that's worthy and deserving of a compassionate, caring, comforting response. But most of us don't do that. We just keep on beating ourselves up. Or let's say something happens like your child gets sick. Most of us go straight into problem-solving mode. What do I have to do? Who do I have to call? And you forget to say, wow, this is really difficult. This is really stressful. I need some soothing and comforting. Most people forget that they need to give that to themselves. So again, with self-compassion, it's noticing that you're suffering, but it's being kind in the face of that suffering, saying, oh, this is really hard, poor thing, this is stressful, this is difficult, or it's really hard to feel inadequate or ashamed about something, and just being really open-hearted towards yourself. And then finally, it's so important remembering that suffering and imperfection is part of the shared human experience. I mean, where's that contract you signed before you came into this world saying you would be perfect and life would be perfect? And yet most of us, when something goes wrong, either in ourselves and our lives, we say, hey, this isn't supposed to be happening. But in fact, it is supposed to be happening. It's part of the experience. It's okay. So self-compassion involves remembering when things go wrong, when you make mistakes, that you need to be kind and caring and supportive towards yourself. And the great thing about self-compassion is that you're always there. You're there 24/7 to give you help when you need it most.
It's great to hear directly from the source of the scientists behind self-compassion. So why do we practice self-compassion? The research is clear that we have a tendency towards this negativity bias, that we focus on and we're motivated by negative thought patterns like criticism, pain, and danger. And if we practice self-compassion, we can shift to be motivated with compassion rather than self-criticism. And the research is also clear that when educators resources I'd really like to share. So if you'll hold on to those questions, I'd really appreciate it. So how do we practice self-compassion? We want to name the emotion without judgment. For example, I'm not alone. Many people are feeling anxious right now is a statement that we can say when we're feeling judgment. And extend kindness to ourselves as we would a friend. For example, we could say something like, I am safe, I have what I need, I am strong and resilient. Or, this is difficult and I can do this, I've done this before. Or, what do I need right now? And then we can do something for ourselves. For example, accumulate positives just for ourselves, engage in something that we enjoy, and build mastery. We can do something that brings us a sense of accomplishment. Find something that we enjoy and then build mastery. That's how we can practice self-compassion. Another way we can practice self-compassion is engaging in a loving kindness meditation on a regular basis. So I'd like to, if you're willing, engage in a brief loving kindness meditation right now. So first, I'll read the directions, then we will begin the practice. I will use a bell to end the practice. For this meditation, I would like you to choose a person to send loving kindness towards. First, bring a person to mind you would like to send warm wishes of loving kindness. Then, pick loving kindness statements such as, may they be happy, may they be healthy, may they have a great school year, or another positive wish of your own. Then, when prompted, switch that loving kindness to yourself. May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I have a great school year. Hopefully you have someone in mind to send your loving kindness towards. Get yourself into a comfortable position, whatever that means for you. If you choose, you can close your eyes. If you'd rather not close your eyes, feel free to pick a spot in the room to focus on, or just a downward gaze may work for you. Let's start by breathing. Take a deep breath in and out as you are able. Gently bring this person to mind. With your person in mind, send them your warm wishes of loving kindness. Now, switch that loving kindness towards yourself. This was a very, very brief loving kindness meditation. There's a longer script or access to a longer script in your reflective notes. And I encourage you to practice that on a regular basis to cultivate your self-compassion. I'm bringing up some websites now that you can access for increasing self-compassion. We don't have time to go into these websites now, but Dr. Neff's website on self-compassion has many exercises that you can engage in, including a self-compassion journal and a self-compassion loving kindness meditation. She also has a course, Mindful Schools, specifically designed for educators. It's a 6-week course for self-compassion, and it's starting in January. The Greater Good in Education, Greater Good Science Center from Berkeley, this website actually has self-compassion and gratitude practices. If we had more time, I would bring you to these websites, but it's looking like we're getting to the close of the webinar, and I have a few more slides to share with you. But if you look at this website, it has the practice, how to practice, and the research behind it. I really encourage you to visit these websites. How to practice compassion in a school-wide setting. Elena Aguilar discusses putting compassion practices such as a loving kindness meditation on your agenda for school-wide meetings, for staff meetings, sharing stories at staff meetings, such as positive experience I had as a student in school was, and sharing personal experiences, inviting parents and students to meetings to share their experiences, really being compassionate about your practices. And maybe most important is holding space to just talk about emotions in a school setting, something we don't do often. And in Elena's book, Onward, like I mentioned earlier, it really talks about ways to do that and also leadership practices and how they can help make that possible. How to support new compassion practices. You could put reminders and inspirational messages around your room, around your office. Things like opening up to possibilities, staying out of judgment. When I first started my self-compassion practices, I set phone alarms and asked myself, am I in judgment right now? It was a way to check myself for judging my judging. And then there was guided meditation practices, such as the loving kindness meditation or other self-compassion meditation practices, like those on the Insight Timer. And then there's your habit building techniques. Like we mentioned earlier, making it fun and setting an intention and designing your environment. There's also the committed action plan that I included in your materials. So you can connect to your values, what you care about. For example, being an effective and healthy educator. If you're starting a new journaling practice, for example, what your goal is could be to start a gratitude journal. You want to identify the action that will get you to your goal. If you connect to your values, you're more likely to carry this out. So you need to find a journal, select a time and location to write. If you identify what gets in the way, your barrier, sometimes it's your thinking, I have no time, or it won't make a difference. What strategy will help you get unstuck? Well, practicing some self-compassion, setting an alarm, finding an accountability partner, someone that will help you hold you accountable to starting your gratitude journal, and maybe making a public commitment, maybe stating on Facebook or Instagram that you're starting your gratitude journal. And then rating your level of commitment, saying here, this individual is at a 4. They're really committed to doing their gratitude journal. And you can simplify this by just setting an intention. I will start a gratitude journal after breakfast in my room at my desk, and holding yourself to that intention. So these are just ways to get started until the benefits of starting a gratitude journal or a self-compassion journal kick in and take over and really reinforce some of the benefit and get the benefits of starting some of these practices, so that you get the benefits and the resilience of these practices. So today we learned the benefits and importance of a practice of self-compassion and gratitude. You learned how to create a practice of self-compassion and gratitude to support your well-being. You learned and hopefully experienced 3 mindfulness meditation exercises. I encourage you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram while I post resources on Wellness Wednesday and Mindful Monday. I want you to take the time, before that, I wanted to offer and say with gratitude that you spent this hour with me learning about gratitude and self-compassion. And I want to wish you the best holiday season and Happy New Year. Thank you so much. So one of the questions is, how can we give gratitude to parents and their children virtually? Can you give some verbal prompts to begin this with them? So gratitude to parents and their children virtually. I'm going to think about that. I think that appreciation can come in many different forms. And I think that you can use any number of ways. I think thank you in many different ways that you can say thank you to parents. There's ways that you can express your gratitude through the virtual world. How can we get children to start gratitude strategies? So some aren't coming to mind right now. How can we get children to start gratitude strategies? I think that the same gratitude strategies that we do with adults can be used with children. So we can use some gratitude strategies such as thank you notes. We can use gratitude journals with children. You want to be careful with gratitude and thank you notes. I read some research recently about thank you notes and wanting to make sure that when you're using thank you notes, that parents are aware that you're using thank you notes when they're going home for culturally responsive reasons. So you want to make sure that you are letting parents know that you're doing these gratitude strategies. Any recommendations for getting unstuck and getting started? So some of the things that happen when we get stuck is our thinking about whether or not we have time or whether or not we can do these gratitude practices is what gets us stuck sometimes, or at least gets me stuck when I start new practices. So starting small, if you're starting a journal practice, for example, just starting a few days during the week can help us get unstuck rather than starting many days during the week. Other ways to get unstuck would be to find someone to do the gratitude practices with. So for example, the text to a friend is a great way to get started on a gratitude practice. So texting 3 gratitudes to a friend and then having that friend text you 3 gratitudes back is a great way to get unstuck. So those are just some ways to get unstuck. Has anyone done research on if there is a better time of day or night to do gratitudes? I'm curious. I haven't read any research on any time of day to do gratitudes. However, I know that there is research on nighttime, taking stock of how things went during your day that has improved sleep. So that I mentioned that, and I don't have the citation, you can email me at Renee@welleducator.com and I can find the research for you. But there is research that says that if you take stock of how things went well, what 3 things that went well during the day does improve your sleep at night. So that is some research that is out there. And I feel like I didn't give much attention to the how can we give gratitude to parents and their children virtually prompt. And I need to give more thinking time on that, as well as gratitude strategies for children. I think I need to give more thinking time on both of those. So I apologize for my responses to those. And feel free to email me and I'll give some more thinking time on those 2 questions and I can get you better responses to those. So again, my apologies on my responses and I'll get you some more information. Again, sometimes when I'm on the spot, I have a hard time answering some of the questions and I'd love to answer them in more detail. So please email me and I will do just that. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season and Happy New Year.